everyone. Welcome back to Wake Before the Day in the studio. We are in the book of Matthew, and we're going to flip through and just share a little bit about what stuck out to us. We have a lot going on in Matthew 9. Jesus heals a paralytic. It's the calling of Matthew. He's questioned about fasting. Jairus' daughter. So there's tons of stuff. We've kind of talked about healing before, so we'll just talk about what stuck out, the verses that stuck out to us today.
Yeah, what I like about this chapter is you have the calling of Matthew, and you're reading Matthew's account of this.
Yeah,
so this is where he enters the story, which is pretty cool. What I like about this is Matthew's so different than the other disciples. Different than Mark, different than Luke, different than John. And in it, he's a Jew. He's writing to a Jewish audience.
Yeah.
But he's a tax collector.
Right.
So that gets him in hot water.
Not well liked.
You don't have friends.
Yeah.
No, you are hated. No one likes you. Because you're supposed to be supporting your Jewish community, but instead you're taking their money. Not only taking their money, taking extra. So Matthew's probably a rich dude. He's probably well off. And now the community sees him as a backstabber, as, he betrayed his people. I'm going to hang out with that guy.
Right.
What you and I really appreciate about this is this scene is in The Chosen. And now some of you might, great, Clark and Bob talking about The Chosen again. You betcha we are. Until you watch it, we're going to keep talking about it.
I know.
It's awesome.
Everybody, too, that has said, hey, I watched The Chosen.
It was
awesome. So good.
I know. So if you haven't watched The Chosen yet, go on YouTube, type in The Chosen, and it's the best biblical portrayal. The acting's phenomenal. The casting's phenomenal. We just love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those shows that we're starting to repeat and putting the kid to bed or rocking him to sleep. Let's throw on a show of The Chosen.
Yeah.
Because it's so good. And anyways, in it, you see the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and you see him bring Matthew. And the way they portray Matthew in the show is interesting. Because he's an accountant. He cares about numbers. He's paying attention to detail.
Right.
He's got his little notebooks and his notepads, and he's always taking note. And he's a very unique guy. And when Jesus calls him, he has this line. He's like, let me go throw my notebook back in my place. And Jesus is like, no, you're probably going to need it. And I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah, and thank goodness he did.
I like it. But what I like about it, too, is that the artistic portrayal of Matthew as he comes in is Peter hates his guts.
Right, which was probably,
probably true.
Know, but yeah.
He's a tax collector.
Right.
Like, why are you bringing that guy in our inner circle? He's betrayed us.
Yep.
And so, when you look at it, Matthew's writing compared to Mark and Luke especially, and then John. Matthew's given so much detail to numbers, who's there, who's not there, the timeline of everything. It's what the longest gospel. So it's interesting.
Well, and you talked about, too, how literally when Jesus called out to Matthew and say, follow me, he makes note that he was in his tax collector booth, and he just left.
Yeah.
And he just did it.
Left everything. And that's really what hit my heart, was just the dude gets a call from Jesus, leaves everything he knows, and goes. I'm like, wow, that takes courage. That takes real bravery.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're going to go follow a guy who's got other followers who don't like you.
You're an outcast.
Not only do they not like you, they probably really dislike you, borderline hate you. And so that's, again, going back to The Chosen. You got to watch it. I like how they portray Peter and Andrew and those guys going, why is this fool rolling with us now? Because he's a lowlife.
Right.
And it's awkward, it's tense, and we'll see what happens. They're at filming season 2 right now. But would I give up everything? Will I give up everything? Will I fully commit to the way of Jesus?
Yeah.
Will you, listening out there, whether you're watching this or you're listening, will you fully commit to following Jesus? Because kudos to Matthew, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank goodness when we get the book of Matthew and we get to read about it.
Yeah.
And so
all the detail.
Yeah. What stuck out to me was actually the following verses. So verses 16 and 17 stuck out. But before there, you have 14 and 15. And so enter the Pharisees into conversation
those guys are
with
really
Jesus.
Fun.
And I'll read a couple verses. This is 14 and 15. Then John's disciples came and asked him, how is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? Jesus answered, how can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is still with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and they will fast. And so essentially, this could be one of the times where they're trying to trap Jesus, and Jesus gives them an explanation that they probably don't even fully understand yet, that
sure.
he's going to be taken away from them.
Like, what are you talking about?
But really, it kind of gets at the heart of the call. And so Jesus' call to Matthew was, follow me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't obey these commands, obey this list of rules. It was literally just, come follow me. Follow this new way. And so that's what Jesus is getting at a little bit here when he's saying it's not about all these, keeping all the rules perfectly.
It's traditions
about, it's about so much more than that. It's about a relationship. And so then what stuck out to me directly from the passage was verses 16 and 17. So I'll read that.
Okay.
No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the new tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst. The wine will run out, and the new wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour... I'm sorry, did I miss something?
You're good.
Okay, it's kind of hard.
You're doing great. You're a good reader, Bob.
No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. And so the picture there that Jesus is giving is kind of like we're bringing in this new way of doing things. Yeah. And it's not just, a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It's literally a new gift that I'm going to give you as a Savior.
Together.
Yeah. And so the picture of, I didn't know this, maybe you guys did, but when the process of winemaking happens, back then, instead of having bottles, they would have literally animal hides.
Yeah.
And they would put new wine in new animal hides because the wine would have to ferment and then expand. Mm-hmm. And along with the wine, so would the animal skin. And so it doesn't make sense to put new wine in an old skin.
Because it's been stretched out.
Yes.
He said it's crusty and dry.
Right, because after the process, an old wineskin would not be able to expand with the fermentation process.
For sure.
And so literally it would just be this waste. And so out of this, kind of this thinking, I was thinking of that worship song, the Hillsong worship song, but I was also just thinking about this new wineskin that we get and how we need to examine things that we're doing. And so, maybe some of you have traditions from your parents or your grandparents. Maybe you guys have traditions that you've just held on to that invite in, religious practices or whatever it might be. But let's examine those practices.
For sure.
And then see, what can we do differently, or what new rhythms maybe is the Lord inviting us into.
And some of the things you might be doing aren't necessarily bad.
Right.
So that's why you're looking at them. But some of them, you had to ask, what's the motivation? What's the value here? Am I doing this because we always did it? You always did it. You always get what you got, and nothing's going to change. So, reevaluating. That's a good word.
Well, I mean, one very specific example is Sunday mornings. So Sunday morning probably looked a certain way for some of you. And then now, because of 2020 and because of measures that we're doing.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
New wineskins.
It looks different.
Yeah, it does.
We might be outside. You might be in your living room. Maybe you weren't doing it at all. And now, because of what's going on, you feel like you should do it. Maybe you were doing it every week. Maybe you were worshiping every week. And now it kind of has fallen away because it's been difficult because of all these, because of all of reality that's going on.
Yeah.
And so how can we examine and then really press into okay, Lord, what's the new follow me strategy? What's the new wineskin? What are you inviting us into? We talk about Sunday rhythms, but even, eating around the table, what does that look like? That can be a simple way that you're just inviting in new practices. And so I don't know what it looks like for you, but I felt like when we were reading it and processing, that stuck out to me. Just a reminder to examine what you're doing here. And then let's step into, if there's something new that Holy Spirit's inviting us into, let's step into it.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then with that, the ending of the chapter, we'll end with this.
Yeah.
Talking about how the workers are few, Jesus is saying, look, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. We got to go and start telling people about Jesus. And I love Jesus' model because he teaches them, he shows them, but then he sends them out and expects them to do exactly what he'd been doing.
Right.
And the same is true for us. And so one of the biggest myths I think Christians buy into is that it's the pastor's job. It's the elder's job. It's the youth leader's job. It's the worship leader's job. You're like, no. If you're a Christian, if you love Jesus and you follow him, you believe in him, it's your calling. It's not even a job. It's your calling in life to live this out. And so praying that, we'll live into this. And like Matthew, when God calls us, we'll go.
Right.
We'll follow the Lord. And
Sorry, are you wrapping up? I just want to say one specific thing that you just said, and pray and ask the Lord, because literally it says in verse 38, ask the Lord of the harvest therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. Because if you pray and you ask the Lord, Lord, where can I step in my life?
Yeah.
Where can He's going to be faithful to answer that prayer.
Show me opportunities.
Yes.
Just do we have the courage to step in.
Yeah.
So Matthew 9, folks, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening or watching. Hope you're reading this as well, and pass the word along to your community, what you're getting out of Matthew 9. But that's all we got today, so God bless you, and have a fantastic week.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his countenance toward you and give you his peace. Have a great day.